Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with co hosts Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I'm Michael Cole,
And I am Matthew Cravat.
and this is our third episode as co hosts now. It feels like it's only been about a week, but
Feels like it, man. But I like being in their ear holes. I feel comfy here.
this episode, I wanted to talk about the Adam and Eve story, specifically the apple. I don't give a shit about the rib and all the other shit. Um, so I'll tell you exactly. So I want to talk about the plot hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first off, we should say, you jokingly just said that you were raised Catholic. I was raised, I say, ostensibly Jewish. I mean, Jewish with ish doing a lot of work. From my, I'm atheist. I was kind of raised atheist. I did religion stuff just kind of because you did it culturally. But
Yeah.
I think we may have different interpretations of the story because it was taught differently in our religious heritages. So that'll be interesting as we go further. Just to put that out of the
Okay.
way, that we
I,
may have differences.
that would be awesome if we do. I think that the problem I'm about to point out is pretty
Yeah,
universal.
yeah.
Um,
I have an idea in my head of what it might be because I know that when I hear a problem with the Apple, I have one problem that pops in my head. So
okay.
let's see.
All right. So here's my. I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna talk about first. I'm gonna talk about my basic understanding of this of that part of the story, and then why I have a problem with that specifically. So, as far as I understand, and I don't care if it was a serpent or not a serpent. That part's not that important to me. I don't care if it was the devil or not the devil. Something talked to Eve, said, "Hey, eat the apple that God said you shouldn't eat." Eve ate the apple. She brought it to Adam, said, "Hey, let's eat the apple." They both ate the apple, and they understood that they were naked and that was bad. And God got mad because he had told them not to eat the apple. So here is my logical point problem with that story.
I'm gonna guess it's why did God get mad?
Exactly. If so, or no, why? Okay, they thought being naked was wrong once they ate the apple, but God didn't want them to eat the apple. So like, and he knew they were naked. So like, them eating the apple made them think it was wrong, even though, do you understand what I'm saying here? Like,
Okay, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Mine's more
like
insidious.
if
Uh,
I make a rule for you and I
why
say,
was it
oh,
already inherently wrong
yeah,
if nobody thought it was wrong? Obviously, God was okay with it. In
right,
yeah.
right, right, and then the only it would be like if I invited you over and said, hey, uh, don't eat any of my laundry. I don't. We won't say food because you're gonna make it
I
weird.
apologize every time we talk about this.
It's
I
those
did
edible
not
underwear.
realize.
So I say that you come over and you like take a bite of edible underwear, and I go, well, it was edible, I guess, but I'm still mad because you didn't listen to me. Which I get that part. I get the like you weren't
I
supposed
don't
to
get
eat the
that part.
thing.
We'll go back to it
Eh,
when you're done with
yeah,
yours.
that's
Yeah.
fine. But logically, I get that part how it works. Like I told you not to do it. Why'd you do it? What I don't get is I didn't want you to know to that being naked was wrong. I wanted you to stay naked, and then I didn't want you to eat this thing that would make you know that being naked was wrong. Now that you ate the thing I didn't want you to eat, you know that being naked was never wrong. Then that's what the
Well,
point I'm
see,
trying to make.
I, I I have a theory
Okay,
that addresses that,
okay,
and my theory goes back to the text, right? So if you read the text, I mean, I read the translation, a translation of the Jewish scripture, not the Christian, not a Christian Bible, Old Testament. So I don't know if there's some differences, but
right,
um, if it starts out with the macro view of day one, boom, day two, boom, day three,
mhm,
gets through day seven, and then it just backs up and says, now let's tell the story. God made a garden and made Adam, blah, blah, blah. Adam was lonely, so God made animals. He needed help taking care of the animals, plucked out a rib, made Eve. Now there's Adam and Eve. Um, that's a story, right? But if you go back to that first part, the day by day part, he made the animals before he made Adam in the first part of the story,
okay,
like when it's just going by day by day. Not only that, it says he made man and woman. He made them. He made both just together. Like maybe it's a big view of the story, but he doesn't say he made Adam and then later on made Eve. It's the one sentence.
But that's Lilith.
Maybe. Well, so here's this. What if God made the earth, populated it with animals, populated it with people? Then he said, you know what? I want a special little place. And he made the Garden of Eden. And he populated it with fruit, the fruit of life / immortality, the fruit of wisdom. Then he made Adam, a special guy there. And there's other people, and there has to be other people because their kids take wives. Abel gets sentenced to go live amongst people, and his first response is, when he's kicked out of Eden, his first response, oh no, Cain's response is, they'll kill me. People will, anyone who meets me will kill me. And like, why would he say that if they're the only people?
Yeah.
So already, so perhaps if that's the case, that Adam and Eve are not the first man and woman, they're just the special ones. Or you could say all the Jews are descended from them, and then other peoples of the world descended from the other ones, which I think some Jews spin it that way. But then being naked was already evil, but they were sweet and innocent, so they didn't know. Imagine like children. We in our culture think it's wrong to run around naked, but we don't think it's wrong for a toddler to run around naked. So when
Right.
you get to a certain age and you realize I'm self-conscious about being naked, that's what the story is talking about. How they got to the point where they realized through eating the fruit that they now suddenly they realize there's such a thing as good and evil, and they're wrong for being naked together. And he
Right.
didn't want them to realize that.
That makes sense.
My issue,
Okay.
though, is if they didn't know the difference between right and wrong, then they could not know it was wrong to listen to the serpent and disobey God because they don't know the difference between right and wrong. So to get mad at them for eating the apple and punishing them is ridiculous. It's like punishing a toddler who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. It's not Eve's fault. Eve was innocent. Of course, she believed the serpent, who, first of all, told her the truth. Because God said, if you eat of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. And the serpent said, no, you won't. You'll be fine. And she's like, and it tastes delicious. And she was like, really? And God was lying. Eating the fruit didn't kill them. The contrary, after they ate the fruit, he kicked them out of Eden because there's also the fruit of immortality in Eden. And he's like, now that you're like us, like gods, and you know the difference in good and evil, I don't want you to eat the tree of immortality's fruit and become immortal too. So I'm going to plant a cherub outside with a flaming sword to not let you back in. That's my issue with it. How do you blame them for disobeying when they didn't know disobeying was wrong?
True. That's a good point. But I just come down to
Yeah.
I think that that yeah, I didn't put as much thought into this as you did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, so it
But
depends on your interpretation. If you say,
yeah,
if you're in a religion that says Adam and Eve were the first man and woman and everyone is descended from them, which I know a lot of religions say, then your point is 100% correct. Why was it evil to be naked if they were the only naked people and they'd seen each
yeah,
other already? Makes
yeah,
no sense. If you interpret it my way, that perhaps all the people existed except the two of them were in a pristine state, then now you're like everybody else. Everybody out there knows good and
yes,
evil. They know
okay,
it's wrong to be naked. I wanted you guys to be sweet and innocent the rest of your life, and now you ruined it.
right, okay. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So it all depends on how you interpret the story. If you know, which is tough because you know, was it Lewis Black who said, Jews lie. We know we lie. Like, we wrote the Bible for each other, knowing no one's going to believe this shit. Like, you're not supposed to. This is how we talk. And if you go back to Jesus, very distinctly said, he speaks in parable. Like, his stories aren't meant to be believed. They're parables to learn from that the Gentiles will not be able to interpret these stories. So you can consider the Old Testament to a Jew. No Jew believes every story in the Old Testament. It just that's not it's meant to learn from, not believe. And of course, as an atheist, I don't take me further away from believing it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, as a Catholic, so we were largely taught that the Old Testament was metaphor. A lot of the Old Testament was metaphor, which is really helpful
Uh-huh.
at reconciling the real world with the Old Testament. To say like, okay, yeah, like this is a metaphor, and this is and the
A
the
donkey really
seven
didn't stop
days,
because it saw an angel and then tell the person riding it, I stopped because I see an angel.
yeah. The 7 days were, you know, 1,000,000 years each or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that, like those. The metaphor really bridges a lot of the gap between reality and the Bible. And so, like, I didn't believe it from a realistic standpoint. I always just believed it as like even the metaphor of that part of the story just to me always felt like if there was an unwritten rule in a game that nobody knew about until you like opened a secret envelope that you weren't allowed to open, then like it wasn't a real rule of the game. Like that's to
Well,
me
I mean,
where
but if you believe in, um,
magic in a young girl's heart.
yeah, I'm done. That's all I was going to say. Yeah, but if you believe in like objective morality, that there is morality that is objectively, you know, there's objective. Period. Right.
Yeah.
More and there's then then it could be that, well, being naked is immoral,
Okay.
and they were exempt from that because they were hidden from the fact that it's immoral. But then when they had the fruit, they realized it was immoral. And like, he wasn't mad at them for being naked, he was mad at them for knowing that it was immoral, because that meant they ate the fruit.
Gotcha.
Like, he wasn't mad because by the time he saw them, they were dressed, like they made clothes out of fig leaves. And he was like, well, why'd you make clothes? You're not supposed to know that you need clothes. You're my sweet innocent baby.
Yeah. Okay. I don't believe in objective morality, but that does make sense if you do. So that works.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to
I
have, we may have to have our friend Aaron Rabinowitz, our philosopher friend from Rutgers University, come, because he will convince you of objective morality. His statement would
really.
be, well, I mean, you videoed his speech on it a couple of years ago, but one of the
Yeah.
things he said is, "You will not convince me there is any place in this world or any situation where being a Nazi and killing 6 million Jews is moral. There is
Okay.
objective morality, and that is objectively immoral."
Yes. I was gonna say I don't. I believe there are some objective morality issues, but there are some things that I would say, like rape is never okay. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say
I think
murder or killing can be not. I wouldn't say necessarily okay, but like unavoidable in certain circumstances. Rape is never okay. Being genocide is never okay. But I also think there's a whole bunch.
a
I just mean,
little genocide, though, a little bit.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
Just kidding. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's like there are things.
Next week I'll have a new co-host. Sorry.
I think I would say is there is things that is. Yeah, I say you do believe in objective morality,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
there is also things that people say is part of morality that really isn't.
Sure.
You know,
I believe in objective morality. I don't believe all morality is objective.
right?
Is that a that's a fair? I
Yeah,
think
I
fair
think that's
statement.
reasonable. Like,
If
I
we
mean,
if we
some
can get
people say it's immoral to be naked. Other people say it's I'm sex positive. It's totally fine to be naked.
yeah, if we can get Aaron on the podcast, I think that's a big get for this podcast. Uh, I think we have 7 downloads from the last episode that aired so far. So
We could
like,
probably get his dad on. I'm friends with his dad. He was a speaker
oh
for TFS.
yeah, no, I would love to get Aaron on the show, but like I don't know. I also would have to come a little more prepared than I usually do. Uh,
Guy who hosts his own 2 podcasts. Come on, ours.
yeah. Or let us on your podcast and you interview us about this podcast.
Well, one of my friends was on his podcast, was just a listener, and all
Oh,
he did
nice.
was donate a kidney. So there is a path.
All right. I'll
Yeah.
donate.
My friend Alex donated a kidney to a stranger in a kind of a chain thing where, like, the person who needed the kidney had a friend or a relative who was willing to donate but wasn't a match. So when they got, um, Alex's kidney, their relative donated to someone else who had a partner who wasn't a match, who donated to someone else. So it was like 4 donations were set off by Alex just donating to a stranger without having a partnered person. He just started the chain of events
That's awesome.
totally altruistically. And yeah, so he was on talking about that night, that actually living his altruism, finding out that was something you can do. You can just sign up to donate a kidney to a stranger, and you can live with one kidney. A risk that if you ever have a kidney problem, you're in trouble. But he was willing to take that risk and donate. So yeah, Alex is a great guy.
That's
So
awesome.
we can be on. If you just donate an organ, I can get you on his show.
I don't know if you are familiar with Hari Kondabolu, but
I've had it in restaurants. I've never cooked it myself.
Yeah. No, he's a comedian, and he's got this amazing joke. He talks about, I don't remember if he is Muslim or I think I think he's Pakistani, and I think he's Muslim. And he talks about how Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all come from the same root, and the same basic
Abrahamic
spot.
religions.
And he says, so basically you can look at Christianity and Islam as a sequel to Judaism.
Hmm.
And he goes, and that's weird to fight about a sequel. He goes, like, imagine it's like Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, and you're like, oh, my favorite part of Back to the Future is the hoverboards. Where in Back to the Future does it speak of hoverboards? There is one true Back to the Future. And every time I just think about that, like, it makes me
Which makes
smile.
Mormonism like fan fiction.
Yeah, Mormonism's like the cartoon, or Mormonism's Rick and Morty, especially with Justin Roiland right now. So the reason why I thought about this topic was I just got caught up and finished um his Dark Materials, the show, not
Phil
the
Pullman. Oh,
yeah.
the show. I was thinking the book, but
Yeah.
okay.
Did you watch the show at all?
I haven't watched the more recent. I watched the first season. I didn't watch the second season yet.
Okay, and the third season just aired, and the third season was the final. They wrapped it up in 3 seasons,
Yeah,
which I think was 3 books.
yeah.
So I think, yeah, it was
Which if you haven't read, you should read them if you ever have the
yeah.
time, because as my friend Wade, who's a professor of English, said, it's his prose is almost like poetry. It's such a
Is
well
it?
written book, like not just the story, just the writing is glorious to read.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I can see reading the books. I will try. I also the reason why it so in the it's a bit weird to explain, so I won't get too much into it, but it's a fairly I would say it's more anti-religion than anti-God, even though I know a lot of people kind of took it as anti-God, but it's, there's
I mean,
the
it's
bad
almost
guy.
very specifically anti-Catholic Church almost. I mean, it's pretty.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The bad guy in the books, or in the show, is modeled very specifically after the Catholic Church. And I think, like, I remember when the movie came out 10-15 years ago. So my mom worked at a Catholic church, and they used to get I cannot remember. There's some newsletter, and if I had to go out and visit her at work, I would grab a free copy of the newsletter. And Bill Donahue, who is a piece of shit, he
Oh,
wrote,
Catholic
eh,
League.
yeah, Catholic League, whatever their little pamphlet was. I would
Mm.
grab the pamphlet because it was before I discovered atheist podcasts, and I was not an atheist yet, but I already knew I hated that guy, and so I would hate read him. And so
Oh man, I hate when you say that. I'm gonna go read my devotional. Hold on.
yeah, when the goal, well, I mean, even if you're a Christian, that guy sucks. Like, I would say, even if you're a Catholic, that guy sucks.
That's an
But
absolute moralism for you right there. It's
yeah,
he sucks.
yeah. When the Golden Compass movie came out with, what was it, Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman?
Uh huh.
Yeah, when
Yep.
that came out, he wrote some piece about how it was a hit piece against the Catholic Church. And I didn't see the movie, so I can't speak to the movie, but speaking to the show, I would say, based on the structure of how they build the world, they could not have picked another religion specifically, like,
Yeah.
to model after, like, because the in the book, or in the show, the government is it's like a religious government in a way that has never, on a scale that has never existed
I
other than the Catholic Church,
I mean, they
in
could have, if they
the Holy
made
Land.
everything like Arab culture instead of European
Right,
culture. They could have made it a Muslim thing, but it doing it
right,
with a white culture and a European culture to
yeah,
it, it had to be the Catholic Church. Yeah.
right. But also, like, even I would say, like, I got the feeling that within that world, they weren't just a group that was a nation state. They were at
Yeah.
least the continent, and I don't think that that Islam has had
Yeah.
that
I mean,
much, that level of
the way it was written,
control.
it had to be the Catholic. I mean, you could have written
Mhm.
a similar story with just different framing, but they certainly wrote it there. Though,
Right.
if I remember correctly, and it's been a long time since I watched the movie, I don't think the movie even got there. You know,
Yeah.
like I think because if you think about the trilogy, I'm assuming that the TV series, which I haven't watched the later ones, the first season is not really about the church. You know, the first
No.
book is not about the church so much. It's there, but
Yes.
it's the later ones where you realize the church exists on multiple dimensions of Earth and it controls all this.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel very churchy. I don't think the movie I don't think felt churchy at all. I think
Right.
Donnie was knowing what the books held and not wanting the sequels to exist because
Yeah.
they go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, the second, I would say the second one, and then into the second one is where the church is the worst. The second season is where the church is the worst, and then the third one, the church is still terrible, but it's not the main focus anymore. At the third season, it does become uh this is not a real god. This is someone faking and trying to keep us kowtowed to being ignorant and stupid to maintain his power, but he is not god. He's not what he claims to be. And
Why does
we're
God
going,
need a starship?
you know what?
A starship. Why
Oh
does
yeah.
God need a starship?
Yeah.
It's
I
a
will
little
say
Star
so.
Trek reference for you, everybody. It's a Star Trek Five, the worst of the Star Trek movies.
Oh, I have not seen any of the movies. I've seen some of the shows, but
We're not the same
uh,
age.
no. One thing that I thought was interesting with the show, and I've seen some, it's been a big thing on Instagram the last year or two that I've seen, and maybe it's existed for a while and I haven't known, but the realistic imagery of angels from what the description is in the Bible,
Uh,
and while they don't do that in the show, they're way closer to. I mean, they're weird, they're fucking weird looking in the show. And they're supposed to be like, oh, they're so beautiful, and it's like I'm looking at it and they look weird, like almost like aliens.
oh, the Vorlon.
um Vorlons.
Yeah, I'm older than you. Sorry.
Is
The
that
best
from
science fiction TV show ever, Babylon 5.
oh
It's a reference. Never mind. Don't worry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
Spoiler. Oops, spoiler if you ever watch the show. Forget I said it.
Yeah, but
They might
no,
reboot
they
the
just have
show.
these, I don't know, they weren't like, I would love to see something where they take religion and they make actual angels and like show us like something along the lines of what his Dark Materials does, where it like entertains, it's good for those of us who don't believe, and then it like puts some specific, like let's put these fucking monsters in that are described, and you're thinking of just like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen with wings, and,
Hmm.
and like nope, we're putting fucking eyeballs everywhere.
Swords for mouths. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. His Dark Materials, I think, I love the concept of it that in the main world that we're focusing on, and where the first book takes place, their souls are external to them, in the form of
Yeah.
their animal familiars, right? And it's so funny that they're like, when they come to our Earth, quote unquote, they're like, "What do you mean you can't see your soul? Like, ew, how do you live that way without knowing you have a soul?"
Yeah. So I have so I have I love the conspiracy theory that the birds are fake. I just think it's hilarious.
Birds are not real. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think it's hilarious. So at work I have this running joke about that, and then we got a new girl at work, and I was saying something to her, I'm like, have you heard the conspiracy theory? And she like, I don't think she believes it, but she's really good at like keeping a straight face and being like, no, have you ever seen a baby pigeon before? They don't exist.
Sure.
She's like really good at it. But like, so we've been talking so much about conspiracy theories at work recently. To the point where I think I may want her to come on the show and talk about conspiracy theories because she's so funny about it. But um we were talking about conspiracy theories the other day, and nobody had heard the theory that uh, Katy Perry is John Benet Ramsey. Have you heard that theory?
No, but I love it.
they and and they were like, "What? I've not heard that." I'm like, "No, I'm like, you got to keep in mind when I talk about conspiracy theories, I don't believe them. I'm not trying to pitch them to you. I'm just saying they are entertaining. They can be really fun." And I'm like, I will preface anything with this one actually has some credibility or something if I think it does. But
Yeah.
I'm like, the John Benet Ramsey one has zero credibility. And they're like, well, are you sure that's a real one? And I'm like, I Googled, and so I pull it up, and the first thing that comes up is this Google image of the picture of the famous picture of John Benet Ramsey and some random picture of Katy Perry, and they've blurred their faces over each other,
Look, they
but
both have blue eyes. It's
but
solid.
they didn't bother to like resize either picture to match. So it's John Benet Ramsey's head is like 7 or 8 times as big as Katy Perry's little head, and they've got their noses lined up, and that's like literally the
The
only thing that
Geiger
kind of
alien that Katy Perry's face is coming out of her tongue.
it like literally is just this ridiculous thing. And I'm like, I actually can kind of see the similarity for the first time ever based on this fucking terrible Photoshop job. But
Have you told them about the Finland conspiracy?
I haven't heard about the Finland conspiracy.
What do you think Finland is?
It's a country.
No, it was made up by the Japanese in World War II. There's
Yeah.
no country Finland.
Yeah, good.
There was a Citation Needed episode about it. It's basically someone on Reddit. There was a Reddit thread on what is something your parents told you that you later discovered was a lie.
Yeah,
And this guy told this thing, my parents told me Finland didn't exist.
that's
And he
amazing.
explained this whole theory of why Finland didn't exist. And people were convinced by him. And he was saying this was something my parents told me that was a lie, but it took on a life of its own that he convinced people, or at least they play that he did, whether he did or not. And but I think it's kind of like flat earthers who went into it as a joke and then drank the Kool-Aid and believed it.
Yeah,
I think it's like that. People believe there's no Finland because there was a joke about there being no Finland. But
that's
it's really
awesome.
funny. It's a whole thing that it's the Japanese started it as a trade route thing. It doesn't really exist.
Nice. We were talking about so that
You'll have to
coworker.
research it so you can bring it to work.
Yeah, that coworker, she was saying to me, "Oh, do you, are you going to tell Logan about the birds not existing or whatever conspiracy theories?" I don't. He doesn't need to believe in conspiracy theories. She goes, "You don't want him to believe in a little bit of conspiracy theories?" I'm like, "He believes in Jesus. Does that
He's already
count?"
got one.
And she's Muslim, so she was like, "Yeah, that counts." And so no, we the conspiracy theory thing I just think is hilarious. But I so going off on a second tangent from the first tangent. So my a person in my life who I will not say their relationship to me because I don't want to out them I think is a 9/11 truther. I can never tell if they're being honest or not. Um, my their spouse, who I am also close with, has told me they don't know if he is being serious or not. So I genuinely can't tell. But one day we were having a meal, and he started telling me about how 9/11 wasn't true and or was a conspiracy. I don't think it was conspiracy. And what the story that we've been told isn't true. And I don't know, and I don't really give a shit, honestly. But I also didn't want to like have the conversation. So instead of having the conversation, when he was done with his like couple opening sentences to gauge my reaction, I said, "I don't believe 9/11 happened." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "I was in New York City 3 weeks before 9/11, which is true. I went to the top of the Empire State Building with my grandfather and my sister and my grandmother, and we looked out at the skyline. And I don't remember seeing two towers. I have no recollection of seeing them on the New York City skyline. So obviously, like, I know the date September 11th, 2001 happened, but I don't believe that there was anything that really happened that day." And he is just looking at me
There's
like,
nothing
"What?"
better than to one up a conspiracy theorist.
He's looking at me like he doesn't know where to go. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking?" And I was like, and I just wait. I held it. I let it sit there for a minute. And he literally doesn't know how to react. And it was amazing. And finally I heard a comedian that said, "You always have to double down when you're
Yeah,
talking to a conspiracy theorist." I said, and I always was curious as to whether or not it worked. And thank you, it does
it
work.
works. Yeah.
And my next one, I really want to meet somebody who thinks the moon landing was fake, so that I can be like, "You believe in the moon?"
Yeah.
Except that
So
I don't think flat earthers actually believe in the moon, so that's not like a crazy thing anymore.
yeah, there's a podcast, Be Reasonable,
Yeah,
done in England.
Marsh, Michael
Michael
Marshall.
Marsh, yeah. And he had a guy on once who was a flat earther who believed in every conspiracy. Like he goes, he believes everything. He said that I believe all of them. And he goes, except one. And Marsh thinks for a second. He goes, you don't believe on you don't believe in the human face on Mars. And he goes, right. He goes, because you don't believe that Mars exists. Exactly.
Amazing. That's fucking incredible.
It's the best.
Uh I love that's the thing is like if we could enjoy conspiracy theories as entertainment and not as something people actually believed, I think they would have great value to our culture. Like like if they were just like fun movies that we were like, yeah, you know, or like like we've talked about it before. You and I've talked about it before. For the most part, there's not too many people who believe like Zeus was an actual god anymore. Like that's kind of a dead.
I didn't until Thor: Love and Thunder, and now that I've seen him on film, I know he's real.
True, that's a good point. But like if conspiracy theories were that where it was like this was that the this weird little niche culture thing for a while and now we can understand it as like a it no longer exists in people's like people don't no longer believe this but like then I think it would be really they'd be really entertaining there's a lot of fun ones. Everybody likes to talk about like, oh, JFK was in a Lincoln when he was shot, and Lincoln's made
Lincoln
by Ford,
and
and
Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln, and Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy.
yeah,
Yeah, but there's also thing
we
like you can take almost any two people, and if you do enough research on them, find
oh yeah
10 things in common.
yeah, but that doesn't make it less entertaining. It's still
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean
I used to love those
ultimately
books, the strange but real books. Like I get them from
yeah
Scholastic at school. I loved them. I didn't think anything of it, but like it didn't convince me, but I loved them.
yeah absolutely
So I once posted um, a YouTube video to my Facebook page, and Facebook is a thing that young people used to use, and now old people use, and
right.
and uh, and it
Same can be said
was
about YouTube.
yeah, the thumbnail was Neil Armstrong on the moon, and you can see kind of the reflection of the flag he planted in his face mask, faceplate, and the heading, was something like "Video proof the moon landing was faked." And I posted saying, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but oh my God, this totally convinced me. I can't believe this is true. And a buddy of mine who's very blue collar guy, really smart, but not formally educated, wrote, Matthew, I can't believe you let me down like this. I can't believe you're another college educated person who just believes idiocy. I don't, he's just going off on me. And I wrote back and I said, Chuck, you clearly did not watch the video. You have not addressed one single point they made. The video is undeniable, and you have clearly not watched it.
Yeah,
And the
is it
next
Rick
post from
Roll?
him, yeah, exactly. It zooms in, and then it becomes Rick Astley when it zooms in. And his next post, and he's someone I did comedy with, was, "I apologize profusely. I am now a believer. You've got me convinced."
Yeah. My one of my best friends from high school, uh he told this his one of his sister-in-law at their wedding told this story. So he got married in August, and so he's a really liberal leftist guy like me, and his wife's family are all liberal and probably close to leftist, and they've been dating since right before the pandemic started. I think they
Do you
maybe started
believe in
dating.
the pandemic?
Yeah. So anyway, so he started dating. Maybe they may have started dating during the pandemic. I'm not. I can't remember the timeline. But so she was telling us the story about how you know when they started dating, Wes got invited into their group chat with just the brothers and sisters in law, and like he was the new guy, and the very first thing he like texted them all in the group chat was like, hey guys, there's some really good points here on why we should like avoid getting vaccinated. Like there's some severe um side effects that I think need to be considered, and it just lingered in their group text for like days, and then finally his now wife, then girlfriend, was like, guys, I really think Wes made some good points, or Wes's article that he shared made some good points. You need, like, I
And
really think you need.
nobody clicked on it, right?
And nobody had clicked on it because they're like, Jesus Christ, this guy's like a fucking wackadoodle. And they click it, and it's like it was Rick rolling them, and they were like, okay, he's in.
Yeah, he's in. Like it's like you click on it, it says there's no fucking reason. Get vaccinated, you know,
And
like that kind of
I think
thing.
that's what it was. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
that's funny. So many people don't know if they should take you serious or not. I get that all
yeah,
the time, amazingly.
no, I get it too. Yeah, it's yeah. My I do want to do a conspiracy theory episode, but I want
Well, I was thinking the name of this episode has to be The Garden of Eden and Other Conspiracy Theories.
no. That's a good one. Yeah, good. Yeah, Garden of Eden and other conspiracy theories, or yeah, Eve let the
It's a great clickbait title. Like, how is that a conspiracy theory? And it's not. It's, you know, but
yeah.
it's what we talked about. It's where we devolved to.
I mean, you could make the argument that it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, I
It's
mean, like Logan believes in Jesus. That's a conspiracy. Yeah.
yeah. I told Sarah that. Sarah's basically on the same page, except that she actually believes in Jesus. So like, she has very few problems with some of that stuff. Um, she obviously doesn't want me to like tell him there is no God, which I don't do. But
Yeah,
other
our biggest we always get concerned about, like, you know, the kids, but like if they just say they're Hindu, they're half Hindu, half Jewish, no kids want to talk religion with them. You know,
right,
for some reason, it's okay not to believe in Jesus if you believe in something else,
yeah,
which is always weird to me. But our biggest issue was when we had a neighbor, a kid in the neighborhood who had brain cancer, and it was very terminal, like he was not doing well.
yeah,
And Leah came in and said her friends are all mad at her. Why? And she's because they told them that the kids told Leah their parents said we need to all pray for him because he's very sick and they need to pray for him so he can get better. And Leah's response was, my parents told me he's going to die, so we should play with him a lot and make his last days as happy as we can.
yeah,
And then parents were mad at us that Leah said that. And we were like, but it's true, right? Like, you guys
yeah,
know that he's going to die, and your kids are going to think they didn't pray hard enough. It's their fault.
yeah,
Like, maybe you need to be realistic with your kids because they're not going to escape this. Like, we know he's terminal.
right, yeah. But let's be honest for a second. It was their fault.
I mean, yeah. What was worse was a couple of years later, on the anniversary of his death, somebody posted in the neighborhood Facebook page, which caused my wife to leave the neighborhood Facebook page because she couldn't handle it. Um, Today's the anniversary of, I won't say his name, but child winning his battle with cancer and going to heaven. Madhavi was
Jesus.
just like, I cannot. And she left the Facebook page because she could not be part of that conversation of people like
No,
liking it and agreeing.
no. Oh, it's so rough. It's been rough too. Like when people in my like I'm not fully. Uh, we've talked about this before, but I'm not like fully out. Like I'm not hiding who I am, but I'm also just not necessarily going to family events with a shirt that says I'm an atheist on it. So like when people have, there's been a couple of deaths recently, and when I'm talking to family members, I'm just like, I am thinking about you, and like it's so awkward because I don't want to say like, like I don't want to say I'm praying for you, which still seems like the most natural. It just seems natural to lie and tell them what I want to hear, but it also feels like A, it's dishonest, and B, I think they all know that I'm not praying for them, so like then it feels fucked up too, and so it's like this weird thing.
I thought it was really interesting that when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, because she was Jewish, people went out of their way to use the Jewish um, condolences, which is "May her memory be a blessing,"
Yeah,
and that like, became really popular in the for a while after she died. And I see it when other Jewish figures, die now, like on social media, you'll see "May their memory be a blessing," and I always like that because it's not. I mean, the word blessings in it, but it's not religious. It's their memory be a blessing. Like it'll
Yeah.
be maybe a good, let them live on in your memories and enjoy your memories of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to talk about one thing now that we're talking about atheism specifically, and
But this is
maybe
an atheist podcast.
it is apparently, according to my Christian wife, it's now an
Incidentally
atheist
atheist.
spot.
Welcome to
Yeah.
Incidentally Atheist with Michael and Matt.
Yeah. Um so I think that I have reached the stage of atheism with my mom where, like on old like sitcoms, I'm trying to think of an example that I can't think of a specific example, but if I once I describe the thing, you're going to know what I'm talking about, which is like on shows, I want to say like early 2000s, like if a character was trying to come out as gay to a parent, they would just like not let him get the words out even though everyone knew what he was about to say, or they would leave the room. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah, like on the Ellen show, when it was going to be a big deal, they were like, I'm Lebanese," like because she couldn't say
oh yeah,
Lebanese.
no, but like I'm not saying like the show wouldn't let him. I'm saying the parents themselves were like, "Ah,"
Yeah,
or like go in the other room.
I
But
know what
like
you're going to
everyone,
say, so I won't let you say. I'll cut you off each time.
so I was with family this past weekend in Massachusetts, and we was just a couple of us, and the topic turned to religion, and I was on such good behavior, just so you know, like I was not like I was not challenging anybody. I was like, I'm not going to get into a fight. I don't want to bother anybody. I just want to hang out with some family members. And I was just, all I asked was, oh, which church are you going to? Like, it wasn't about to like launch into a thing. And it didn't go anywhere bad. But as soon as the topic of religion came, my mom like scooted out of the room. And I was like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
okay, mom. So I feel like I'm not, I want to just be like, I'm an oh, she left the room. Mom, I'm an oh, she left the room. Like I just feel like that. But I have no desire to like if she asked me about it, I would be honest with her. But I have no desire to like be like, Mom, I'm an atheist, or to upset her. I just think it's funny because we've gotten to that like sitcom-y like
She's
ah
vested and doesn't want to have the conversation.
yeah, like I
So,
get it. He's your roommate. I get it. We don't need to talk about it. Like and I think I'm at that point where she's like, all right, there's nobody, you don't think there's anybody upstairs, we're good, like we don't need to ever acknowledge it
you know,
verbally.
and it's like, I know you used to listen to Matt Dillahunty a lot, and like he
Yeah.
says that all the time. Like it's not a conversation you have to have.
Yeah.
Like it's you have your belief or disbelief, they have theirs, and you can choose to share that, but you don't have to. If it makes them
Yeah.
happy not to know, let them not know.
Yeah. No, that's how I feel. I mean, it's tough because my mom married a guy who doesn't believe in
Yeah.
God, but like he's not specific. My dad's not specifically an atheist. He would not use that word for himself. But so like, it's not like she hasn't encountered atheism. It's just a matter of like, and I have not gone. I've not tried to tell her. Like I'm not trying to come out to her. I'm just trying to leave it alone. But I thought it was funny that the second religion came up,
Right.
I've never seen my mother move so fast.
Yeah, it could you might say it in this conversation, so I better get out of the room.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
So
funny. I had a work dinner in November. I was in Salt Lake City on business, and my boss's boss from France was in, and we're at dinner, and it was kind of a family style setup. Like they, bring us plates of things to share, and um, at our table they brought out like I don't remember, a beef dish of some sort, yummy, 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 and then a plate of salmon, and my VP, took some salmon, then she handed it to me, and I just picked it up with two fingers and moved it over to a French coworker of mine and said, "I don't eat fish." And he goes, "Oh, is it because you're Jewish?" And I'm like, "No, no, Jews eat fish. I just don't. I mean, except for Jewfish. Like if you smoke that salmon, I'll eat it, but I'm not eating like that." And my VP turns to me and she says, "So are you very religious?" And as I turned to look at her, my direct manager, whom you know, is sitting across, and she's like a churchgoer. And we have never really talked religion, but she looks up and starts to laugh. And I'm like, oh, apparently she knows that I'm an atheist. Like, just mean other people at work know it's not a secret,
Yeah.
but like we've never discussed it because I know she's religious. I don't want to offend her in any way. But she's like waiting for my response. So I'm like, I didn't realize she knew. And I look at my VP and I said, I am the least religious person you ever met. And when I say the least religious person, I mean the least religious person you ever met. And she just laughed, and everyone at the table laughed, and went on happy, happy, happy. But I was
Yeah.
well, let me tell you, I'm on the board of directors of an atheist organization. Like, I don't need to go that far, but I'm the
Yeah.
least religious person.
I I was talking today with coworkers about you, and I was like, "Oh, I'm recording tonight," and
I
um,
had the same conversation, except my coworkers met you.
yeah,
Half of them did.
yep, yeah, I know. Not the new guy, but
Yeah,
it was
there's two new
most.
people who don't know you,
Oh yeah,
but
but so I was talking about you, and then I said, uh, I don't know if I've even told you half of this. So I don't know if you remember this. My first, for listeners, Matthew was my boss for about
So
almost 9 months.
so I was your boss for 6 months, and
Yeah,
then you moved to the other group for six
department. Yeah,
months, but
yeah,
still two desks away from me.
yeah. But during that time, you were my boss. The first day at the job, I'm working for you, and at the end of the day, you came over and you said it more straight faced because I didn't know you yet, and I didn't know how humorous and you take life, and you said to me, uh, something like, if you don't screw me over, I'll give you a good recommendation when this is all over, but you got to not suck or something. And I just remember being like, all right. And I like went home, and Sarah was like, how was your first day? I'm like, my boss said like this, and I was like, and she was like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, and she's like, it's just a temp job, just like,
It's
just
funny because
keep.
when I directed improv, anyone's first show, I always said, "Okay, go out there and don't suck." Like that's literally what I told everybody as my pep talk: "Don't suck.
Yeah,
Be
but like I
funny. Don't
didn't.
suck."
And and now looking back, because I know you, it's like hilarious. But at the time, I was like nervous, and she was like, "Yeah, it's a temporary job. Like how bad can it be?" And then like less than 3 or 4 days later, we're at lunch with
Uh-huh.
I can say someone's first name, right? Or no?
Sure, say Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa. We were at lunch with Melissa, and uh, and you said something about like going to a triangle free thought thing or something, and I was like, "What is that?" And you're like, "Oh, it's an atheist organization." And I said,
And you said, "Do you listen to any podcasts?"
"Yep." Yeah, exactly.
I
And
remember it
and you
well.
and I said, because I listened to Cognitive Dissonance, and you said, "I know Tom and Cecil. I'm the one who gave them
I'm the
the
one that gave you donuts in Hickory, North Carolina.
donuts." Yeah, because I remember that episode when they're like, a listener. I don't remember them saying Matthew, but I remember them saying a listener came and saw us at the show or the
Convention, yeah.
convention, and gave us donuts because they were still having that. But I didn't remember that part of the story. I didn't mention that part of the story when I didn't want to get into the backstory with all my coworkers, but I said something like, yeah. As soon as I said it, he's like, I know them. I've met them several times now, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, and
Yeah,
immediately,
I gave Cecil his second favorite donut. Like he had his top five list, and one of the donuts I gave him hit didn't knock off number one, but it became number two, so knocked the whole list
nice.
down.
All right, so we will see all of you, or we will hopefully all of you will come back and listen to us talk about slut shaming and morality policing,
Just
and
in general,
basically
instilling your morality on other people,
sticking your nose in other people's business.
which
Uh,
I
w-
will shame. I don't think you should be sticking your nose up into someone else's business. That's
if
gross.
that's what you like to do, I mean,
No, but that's
sometimes
where I draw the line. As a Jew, knows things is where I draw the line. I feel it's anti-Semitic to stick your nose in places.
I feel like it's yeah, I feel like it's unavoidable for people with noses like yours and mine to not kind of get it in there a
I
little
know
bit.
all the time, all the damn time. You know what? It makes it lighter too.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you're 69. Um,
My nose hairs are like look bleached, frankly.
this part is definitely getting left. I'm
Like,
gonna
yeah,
I'm gonna cut because I don't even remember if that was the first episode we recorded that we mentioned that part. But I'm definitely leaving this in, regardless of whether or not I take the rest of that out, so that they're like, "Wait, did they just talk about 69ing and bleaching nose hairs?"
What
Like
does
that is,
that mean?
yeah. This
You got to be a
episode,
Patreon to get all the unedited stuff, which we don't have yet. But
yeah.
one day there'll be jokes that you can get.
Also, can we just pick some of those podcast sponsors that we don't think sound good and just start saying they're sponsoring without actually getting any money from them? Just when we're talking about 69ing and nose hair bleaching, brought to you by BetterHelp.
Brought to you by Christian Health Ministries.
Brought to you by stamps.com. Mushroomstamps.com, that is.
WTF pod at checkout.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you again for listening to us. If you're still here, you must be a fan. And so please hit subscribe. Please give us a good review. Please don't mention that we were talking about our nose hairs being bleached by Lady Juice. That would be great. And if anybody in my family is listening, I am sorry, not for the atheism, but for basically everything else that's come out of my mouth on this episode.
Can't wait to be in your ear holes next week.
Yeah.
See ya.